Good morning. Today is the Thursday, the 26th of March 2026. Don't worry, I ain't gonna make it a habit of posting a video every day, but I do make a habit of making a post whenever I have something to say. And yesterday I touched base on ketones and glucose and why it's a good idea to not just measure ketones, but also to measure the glucose levels. I think without being able to remember it actually, also I mentioned the small catches there as to when to measure it and how to measure it. But there is something else that I'm also measuring every single day, unless obviously I'm not at home, and that is my weight numbers. And in those terms, that we're talking bone density, we're talking well the things that the Garmin Smart Scale can do, and that is fat percentage, weight, lean muscle mass, skeleton muscle mass, sorry, and bone mass, and there is another one. But those are just on top of my head. The reason why I'm making this video here is because I've always made it a habit of stepping on my scale early in the morning, right after I've done my toilet visit, which is the way to do it. Then you have a baseline. But about 6 months ago, I got curious to see how much weight do I actually lose during the night time. So I stepped on the scale at night, just before bedtime, and then in the morning I could see that I lost in average about 600 grams typically. It obviously depends. If I had a number 2 delivery, obviously the weight loss would be significantly higher than that. But in general terms, if it was just a regular night, it would be about 600 milligrams I would be losing. But as I was doing that, I also started looking more detailed into the numbers, and I realized that there was a weird tendency that I couldn't explain. My fat percentage has been at nighttime when I measure it about 22, 22.1, 22.2, something around that area. But yes, I've got some fat I can lose, which I'm happy about. But when I measured it in the morning, it was always about 23. And I thought, how can I be losing 600 grams of weight and then wake up in the morning and actually, in terms of numbers, getting more fat? So that annoyed me a little bit. I didn't get really much into the research of it. I just felt a little bit annoyed about it. But then it just so happens that I weighed myself the other morning, as I always do, and then about a half an hour later, I had a little bit easier water flow, and I thought I wanted to see what that impacted on my weight. So I made a secondary weighing in about 30 minutes after the first one, and behold, my fat percentage dropped straight down to the same I had by nighttime before I went to bed. And now I've looked into it. It turns out that when you're lying down, your blood is pooling in your body, and the Garmin is measuring your fat percentage by how fast an electrical impulse is traveling in your body that it sends in. And the pooling of blood in your body while you've been sleeping all night is more dense than if it has been circulating freely as it has when you've been up and around and moving. And so it measures that density as being fat because fat has a higher density than blood. And that's why I get obscured reading when I'm waking up in the morning and I do that weighing there. So I have to get up, have to get about and walking for about 30 minutes, still not have done anything but the toilet visits and not have been drinking or eating anything. And then you step on the scale and you will find the real numbers. So I've just done that. And it's interesting because I make note of I make note of all these numbers all the way through, and I could statistically just go back and correct them. But because I do not know exactly what time I did measure it, but it's always been right out of bed 99% of the time, then I probably could adjust it. But because it's 99% of the time, there is that little 1% discrepancy. So I'll just keep the numbers the way they are. But going forward, I can say that there is a significant drop in fat. So while I was at about 18, 19 kilos of fat on my body currently, I'm now below 18. So this is just a little, I mean, if you're talking tendencies, then it really doesn't matter how you're doing it because the tendencies remain the same. as long as you're doing the same routine. But if you want the numbers to reflect reality, then there is some small things to be aware of. And in this case, it is to make sure that you measure your weight on a smart scale 30 minutes after you wake up and you have been out and about walking, having the blood circulating in your body first. So that was just a little fifth for those of you who are as meticulous in the data keeping as I am. There's always something new to learn. I love that. Until next time, as always, stay happy and healthy.